Sorry. Yeah, it's all.
They took my chair. Put this on flight mode. Put this on flight mode. I'm going to leave it here. Yeah, but I'm going to keep on coming back some space. Am I on? Our sound is fine? Yeah. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? You good? I mean, let me tell you this. You guys are winners. I can't believe you are here. It's 9:30. So clearly we left home yesterday to beat the traffic. That's what we did. So if anybody else can hear my voice and they're not yet in the venue, please make your way inside so that we can start with our proceedings. Going once, going twice, thrice. Are we a go? I see the doors about to close. Thank you so much, Doc. So once again, good morning, and thank you so much for waking up and making sure that you fight the hardest war that we ever have to fight in Johannesburg, and that's traffic. So I'm glad to be in a room with a bunch of champions. My name is Okanya Wagasosibo, Omagema Umshingilo Gathabethe Umntwana, Umntwana lo waseMaswatini uMancobeni, and I am going to be your program director and your facilitator for the morning. I would Liliza for myself, I don't know how to do it, so Lili. So before we start with our formal proceedings, please allow me to welcome up on stage Heinrich from the Radisson Blue Gautrain Hotel. He's going to give us our safety and house rules briefing. So give him a round of applause, please. Pleasure.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Radisson Blue Gautrain. Just a quick few rules. Please note this is a non-smoking venue and building. If you want to have a cigarette, fill your lungs with your happiness, you can go up to H3 or down at the pool deck, or you can go down the escalators to R1 at the outside. Fire escapes, you will see there are 2 fire escapes in this venue. One, if you go straight out to the door, to your left is the main route, and then the primary route will also be straight through there. There's another secondary route where you can go down all the way to R1 to the assembly point. Also note, for a quick crime briefing of the area, if you are an international guest or you are coming from other sections of South Africa, you do not need a permit to walk anywhere in Sandton. So please take note of that. People say that the president is in the area, you are trespassing, now you need to pay a fine. You do not need a permit, so if anyone approaches you, if you're going to Sandton Mall or you're going down the road to the Mark, please come back and inform security directly. Thank you very much.
All right, now that we know, I think also in terms of the house rules, if you can please have your mobile phones on vibrate or silent. Ideally, just to give yourself a break if you can, and you can risk it all. You can put it on flight mode. You're on a flight. You're on a flight. Just give yourself a break and let's see what's going to happen. And then also, if you step out of the venue, I did see that there are unisex bathrooms. So that is you walking out of the venue, and then you'll see it immediately on your right-hand side. That's where it's going to be possible. We're going to try to keep it very swift. And before we get on with our program, I would like to say this officially. Good morning, all protocol observed. Thank you once again for coming through to be part of a conversation. And I can't stress this enough. This morning is not a one-way. You know, we're not here to deliver something. We're here to have a conversation. And this is meant to be a conversation starter. So those ideas, those solutions, whatever you can think of, note it down and let's engage. That's what it's going to be about. We're here to talk about something that is very important to us, and that is sanitation. We're here to talk water. We're here to talk dignity. We're here to talk about being sustainable and making sure that as a country, and by far contributing to the continent and of course the global community at large, that we can get our names, our organizations engraved and make history. With that being said, the theme of today is Next Generation Sanitation Technologies, a transformative opportunity for CSI. I remember in school, my marketing lecturer used to say that without CSI, which should be your top priority as a corporate, you then don't have a customer. So CSI is not a charity. CSI is making sure that you're giving life to your business. You're giving a lifeline to your business. So when you take care of the people that are your consumers, you take care of your bottom line. So that's the conversation that we're having this morning. So the conversation is going to focus on not only the importance of demonstrating that commitment to the communities that are the lifelines of our businesses, but also to the well-being, social and environmental, of our country. And we're also going to discuss the how. Because sometimes you're like, I want to help, but how can I? And that's what we're going to discuss today. Before introducing our first speaker, I would like to say this. I enjoy sports, so I'm going to use a sport code from the great Michael Jordan. If you don't know him, forget about it. So the quote goes as such: talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence, that wins championships. So we are here for the championship of creating sustainable, efficient sanitation for all. We are in the championship of ensuring dignity for all. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce on stage, and let's give her a very big round of applause. It needs to be warm, it needs to be great, because I had a 2-minute conversation with her, and me and her, we clearly suffer from the same thing. We are allergic to traffic, okay? Traffic is just, you know, it's a health issue. So please, let's give her so much love as you help me welcome on stage to set the scene for us for this morning, the WRC CEO, Dr. Jennifer Molwantwa. Give her a round of applause, please. It's a pleasure, ma.
If I put my thing on this thing, it's not going to disturb this? Can I put my thing here? Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Deputy Minister, David Mahlobo, chairpersons of boards that are with us today, representations from the Department of Science and Innovation, Mr. Tshepa Musia, Dr. Tshepa Musia, our technology developers, our partners, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I hope you can see me at least, because I see you very worried. I know I should have been here, but that's okay. Thank you very much. We really, as the Water Research Commission, are highly honored and privileged to be in your company this morning, particularly in observing World Toilet Day, which is obviously not the same as Mandela Day, birthdays, Heritage Day, but this is Toilet Day, really, and the one thing that everybody needs to convey shit, I know. Nobody wants to hear the word shit, but that's exactly why we're here. So we really are here today recognizing that we cannot do this alone. With the work that the Water Research Commission has done over the last 10 years or more in establishing a technology accelerator program called SASTEP, which was funded by both the Water Research Commission, the Department of Science and Innovation, with funding obtained from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We have come full circle, really, and are one of the leaders in the world, together with India and China, really, in the development of what we call water-efficient sanitation systems. I know the people call them a lot of different names, next generation, non-sewage sanitation. But I think in the context of South Africa, we need to be looking at it as water-efficient sanitation system. And this is because we understand South Africa being a semi-arid country with a little less water precipitation compared to the world average. I think with also a little bit more mentality of abundance and overuse without conservation, without managing our demand. We therefore have got these two competing needs around water, and when the Constitution clearly says everybody has a right to water and a right to sanitation. So where are we about this? We are acknowledging that there are at least 3.6 billion people in the world who do not have safe and safely managed sanitation. So we always try to put everything into context, because here at home we really are a very emotional country. It's always so bad for us. But out of 8 billion people in the world, there are at least 3.5 billion people that still don't have safely managed sanitation. And therefore, as part of that assessment, it meant that also us having a finite resource in water and knowing that our population is growing at a very alarming rate, there's going to come a point where we do not have enough water to drink and convey sanitation or sewage. And therefore, we had to find ways and means that says, how do we start looking at areas which geologically do not have and climatically do not have that much water? We're looking at our Northern Cape, we're looking at our Limpopo provinces, and understanding that other provinces such as your KZN, as well as your Gauteng, do have much more water. So how do you start balancing this act and making sure that we start using less water but still provide the dignity and the for the sanitation to convey the waste, domestic waste? We also note that innovative technologies had to play a key role. I mean, somebody once made an example about a toothbrush. For a very, very long time, the toothbrush was the toothbrush, as the toothbrush has always been known to be the toothbrush. But today you go into a supermarket and you're looking for a toothbrush, you have to think a lot of, there's a lot of variants, so that is as a result of innovation. And therefore, when the challenge around sanitation, around water availability, water security came, and a challenge was provided to say, let us look at new innovations and new ways of ensuring that we still provide safely managed sanitation, but we utilize less water, and we make them still attractive, and we still make sure that they are fit for purpose, for the children are differentiated from those of the adults. How did then we look at this? So sanitation really played a very big role in that. And what happened is that we had to take a number of technologies that have been developed internationally, and we had to bring them to South Africa for them to be localized. So when the technology developers are here saying, these are the kind of toilets when they're going to show us, a number of things have happened. More than the science, there's also been this social aspect that has been. So these have been tested with people, and people have given feedback on how they look and feel. And we've gone back to the drawing board to redesign, to retrofit. But today, it's more about calling to action corporates in South Africa who have got CSI budgets to say, let us partner with the Water Research Commission, let us partner with the Department of Water and Sanitation, let us partner with the Departments of Human Settlements, for example, let's partner with the Department of Basic Education, let's partner with prisons, let's partner with hospitals and clinics in rural areas, where we will be looking to invest in these technologies and them being implemented, because we are no longer talking about a laboratory tool. We are here talking about systems and technologies that have been tried and tested, that have been implemented in the schools, where there has been a lot of impact reported. And the most critical one that we want to acknowledge is through the school systems, where children's attendance has increased a lot, where children, especially from the informal settlements, will hold it from home just to come to school. That is how good it makes them feel. But also try to go before they go home, just so that they can be able to also feel good. So we are here today saying, where there is the money, we're not saying do not invest in other things. We're saying there is an untapped market. There is a market that you have not recognized or identified, and here we are with the Water Research Commission, Department of Basic Education, Science and Innovation, and South Africa at large saying, let us invest and consider investing in these new technologies, water-efficient sanitation technologies. Thank you very much.
Ask Doctor to please stay on stage to welcome the DM on stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for my lady facilitator for assisting with the protocol there. Some of us are just academics, everything goes, and DM also knows that. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome on stage to give our keynote this morning, Deputy Minister of the Department of Water and Sanitation, Honorable DM David Mahlobo, who is here representing the Minister, and who will give us an address around the government priorities and the role of innovation and partnership in that regard. DM, welcome, and thank you very much.
Shorter than Jennifer. Morning, a very good morning. Goeiemorgen. How unfunuk I can go home, Cheng Cheng, and Dobri Atra. Thank you very much. To our vibrant and most capable CE, my sister, Dr. Jen, to our facilitator and moderator, my sister, Kanya, when I was young, nyevu yasikhuluma Swati mbamba. To the leadership of the Water Research Commission, led by my sister, Dr. Mulamu, and the other members of the board of the Water Research Commission, to my brother and the leader, the chair of the board of Umngeni Uthukela, u-advocate uKhuzwayo. Manje mangibona wena bab Khuzwayo, I remember your colleagues in your legal fraternity. This day is an important day. We remember one of our finest legal brains who was actually maimed and killed by the apartheid system on this day, 43 years ago. To be exact, it was 1981. Advocate Griffiths Mlungis, Umkleng, actually breathed the last breath because he fought for justice, equality, and freedom. And 4 years later, our mother and the sister, the wife to Advocate Mkleng, Mam Vitora, was also taken out by the system. And I'm happy to see you here, my brother. And the other leaders that are here, and also my guest, my sister, she has done some work. Dr. Kuzwayo, she was doing some work in the United Nations, dealing with some of these issues. The team from the department, I've seen they've accompanied me here. Someone has a birthday. She was making you, Sis Jen, to sing and say happy birthday to Zanele. And to the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, I'm happy they are all here. And to the invited guest, Jennifer, she only gave me the address where he sent in Radisson Hotel. She forgot to give me the keys and the notes. But she said I must come here on behalf of Her Excellency, our Minister of Water and Sanitation, just to have some few words. Normally it's not easy to speak to the audience of your capability, including our partners from abroad that we have worked together. We are very pleased that today, in this morning, the Water Research Commission, our host, the Science and Technology and Innovation Department, we are part of those that have chosen that our country must be part of a global effort to shine the light for those who remain vulnerable, that doesn't have decent sanitation and sustainable sanitation. As we're approaching 9 billion human beings around the globe, the numbers over the last few years, those who don't have access to decent sanitation, they've increased from 2.5 billion. Now the numbers are hovering above 3.5 billion. People who don't have access to decent sanitation. The numbers have also increased where women and girl children and the number of people they have to go to the field, they do open defecation. That's the current climate where we are. When the United Nations made a choice that this day it will be toilet or sanitation for peace, what does it mean? Inasmuch as we've invited our friends in business and everybody else, we must always ask ourselves, what is the terrain in which we must prosecute the struggle for justice? And this terrain, we can define it that the world is most unstable and it's the most dangerous. Remember, over the last few years, in the last 3 to 4 years, we experienced the pandemic. It disrupted many supply chains. Many lives were lost. When many lives were lost, many governments, they never had a toolkit on how to respond to the question of the pandemic. They were struggling. And many nations could feel that there was a dark cloud hovering on their heads. And some nations, they could not breathe. Some of you might know someone who has actually perished because of the acute respiratory syndrome called COVID-19. They died. And governments had to spend resources to respond to the call to save lives and protect livelihoods. One of the most important issues at the time, when there was no cure, no remedial action, was the question of hygiene. Hygiene was the most important instrument. Guess what? Many governments, they reacted the manner they reacted, but because of advancements in science, technology, and engineering, there were a number of vaccines that were developed just to try to improve our immune system. What happened? Therefore, this is what happened where many countries are trying to recover. Africa, including ourselves, were doing that. When we thought our problems were over, NATO expanded their membership, Russia moved in, then they decided to start a conflict with Ukraine. That conflict is over 3 years now. And when it's over 3 years, even those of us in the southern tip of Africa, thousands of miles were affected. Supply chains are disrupted, cost of living, and lives are being lost. The arms industry is the only beneficiary in terms of the conflict. They are laughing all the way to the banks. Instead of saying, war must stop, some people say, give this one arms, and the conflict is far from being over. At the very same time, the economic wars between the US and China continues. The protectionism, the advancement in technology, rather than be a source of co-creation and cooperation, they are on each other's throat on the advances on technology. And when those two economies, they actually snoozes, the world catches cold, and we still feel it. When we thought our problems were over, then there was October 7. Hamas chose to attack Israel, took hostages, and Israel chose to respond. They've maimed thousands and thousands of women and children. Infrastructure is nowhere. Toilets are not available. This is where we are. That's the environment where you are. What is happening? All the things we've agreed together, that the sustainable development goals of a better world, in unison, in harmony, that is prosperous. Currently, all those resources are being redirected. The sustainable development goals are no longer on the agenda, let alone the imperatives of climate change, because this is the reality of our time. And the vulnerable are most exposed. They are mostly exposed. This is the environment where we are as we speak today. And the Americans have gone to election. We respect democracy. We just came from our own elections. We don't know what will happen. We don't know whether the situation is going to escalate for the West and do some of these particular issues. Why I'm raising these issues? You as scientists, engineers, professionals, and leaders and thought leaders, you have to raise your voice. While on one planet Earth, we are flying at 37 or 39,000 feet above the sea level. There is only one planet. And if we don't raise the voice, those that we have given them the authority to lead us in a peaceable way, they're not doing it. They will cause problems. Therefore, when you are here today, please continue to shine the light that there is an agency to address water and sanitation challenges, especially for the vulnerable and the affected. It is the right thing to do. It's about humanity, our existential crisis. It's about the issues of the environment. It's about the issues of the economy. But water is also about the issue of security. Here in SADC, we live in peace. We share the rivers. Water knows no boundary. It flows from Lesotho to here. It goes to Botswana. It goes to Namibia. It has no ideology. It just gets into your yard, even if you don't like your neighbor. And then it can flow to the next neighbor you don't like. That's how water works. We all live downstream. The issue around cooperation is an important issue. Well, one, humanity, we yearn for peace, we yearn for justice, and we yearn for development. That's who we are. That's what binds us. In Southern Africa, we know too well that we are a water-scarce region. Therefore, when we cooperate, we say it's the right thing to do. In Africa, we nearly had a problem where water, rather than be a part of solution for security, it actually nearly caused a biggest conflict amongst 3 countries. One of our beautiful rivers, we pride ourselves, is written even in holy books. It's called the Nile River. It nearly became a source of conflict. When one country, on the basis of its economic needs, they actually created a dam there. And the matter caused a stir to the downstream users, which is Egypt then. And then in the north, you have the Sudan. Therefore, you also know the problem between Israel and Lebanon, the fight around the Golan Heights. Water, if it is not handled well, rather than it can be a source of life and a source of development, it can cause the biggest wars. Therefore, this is the terrain where we are able to perform your expertise. One of the things that when you meet here, we speak about this thing that must be done. I always draw inspiration from His Excellency Nelson Mandela. There are 2 quotes that should inspire us all. Massive poverty and obscene inequality are such terrible scourges of our times. Time in which the world boasts breathtaking advances in science, technology, industry, and wealth accumulation, that they have to work to rank alongside slavery and apartheid as social ills. As long as there is poverty and inequality happening around the world, when you look at issues around decent sanitation, sustainable methods, it's one of the issues that demonstrate between the gap between the rich and the poor, the affluent and not the affluent. But because of the brain trust and the thought leaders that this world has produced around research, innovation, science, technology, engineering, all these advances, they are not meant for the people that are producing them. They are meant to solve the global human problems. Everything we do is for humanity. In other words, when we say we do all these things so that nobody is left behind, we are absolutely correct, because we go through the steps of our icon, Nelson Mandela, who would have become so bitter that they imprisoned him. But he understood the power of forgiveness. And he also understood that we are living in a world that nobody is born a racist. Nobody is born to hate. But the way we socialize people, we are being socialized to say we're different, we're a superior human race, blah, 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 blah. These are some of the things. And we have the ability to use science, engineering, technology, and the wealth we have that we're accumulating for the benefit of humanity. When you have the partners today, I don't normally like, Jennifer, this word called corporate social investment. I just want an investment. It's the right thing to do. Investing, if you don't invest in communities and try to raise the Human Development Index, you are posing a risk to your own business. You can't coexist with a sea of poverty as an enterprise. Investing must be deliberate. When you invest in people, don't think that we need a handout. We don't want handouts. We want a lifting hand. Don't give us handouts. Nelson Mandela would have been correct when he said, I quote him, "Overcoming poverty is an act of justice. It is the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and a decent life." I close quote. I want to repeat this. Overcoming poverty is an act of justice. It is the protection of fundamental human rights, the right to decent life. That's what he taught us. Therefore, safe sanitation is not only about infrastructure. When we say 3.5 billion around the world don't have access to decent and sustainable solution, but it is a fundamental human right. It's a right to life. It's a right to dignity. It's equivalent to the right to a safe environment. Because if people are exposed to inhumane sanitation facilities, what happens to the environment? The environment is going to be compromised. It will degrade. Imagine in 2024, in the 21st century, people still dying on the basis of waterborne diseases. People dying on the basis of pandemics. The flora and the biodiversity being threatened on the basis that we don't respect human rights around access to decent sanitation. But it's also about security. The most vulnerable, imagine a woman in the middle of the night, in an informal settlement. You will have to go out. Instead of being in a toilet for peace, we are in a toilet for war and conflict. We are scared because there are these criminals. There is a pandemic in the world called gender-based violence and femicide, exposing them. Imagine that you are actually a child. There is no decent sanitation. You go to a school and you drown into a pit. Imagine, because the biological clock for young children now, because of the food we eat, most of them, they go through their cycles very early. They need sanitary tools, kit, and sanitation and hygiene is an important issue. This is the importance. But even those who have worries at home, at work, everywhere, when you go to the bathroom, to the toilet, it's a time of peace. You can think there, and you can strategize, and actually come with solutions. Others, you could see how peaceful the toilet is. They spend prolonged periods of time. It can't be a place of anguish. It can't be a place of problems. I want to say universal access to water and sanitation is about protecting the health and the well-being of those multitudes and creating a foundation for an equitable and a just world. South Africa, we've done well around access to water and sanitation. There were those who were denied access to water on the basis of the color of their skin, and others on the basis of gender. They were the most vulnerable. We changed that since 1994. We are proud of our record. Access to water infrastructure is hovering above 90%. Access to sanitation has improved to above 84%. What does it mean? The opportunities that are related to water, for the first time, are accessed by all. But we are the first to admit that many, many millions are still left behind. In water, we still have more than 4 to 5 million. We still have to reach them. But access to sanitation, the number is more. But it has changed the lives of women. They don't have to go long distances and a girl child to go fetch water. In as much as in certain communities, we still have that problem that we must address. To have the right of a child to play, to go to school, that right in many communities have been realized. For the right of a woman to be exposed to other economic opportunities and participate as a full citizen in the life of our country, it's happening. However, I must be the first to admit that there are worrying signs. Our advances have been reversed. There's been a regression on the basis that, one, municipalities in our country, they failed, some of them, to plan for the population growth. Here in Gauteng, as an example, some few years ago, there were less than 10 million people. As we stand today, there are more than 16 million. Population has grown, inward migration, coming for opportunities, but there is also international migration happening here. Therefore, there has been a placement on infrastructure, a number of challenges, including the sprawling of informal settlements. In Johannesburg alone, we used to have about 280 informal settlements. Today, they are running at 360 informal settlements. Those, they need water, they need sanitation facilities. But at the very same time, the economy has grown. When the economy grows from 1 trillion rands to above 6 trillion rands, your infrastructure network must grow. Because water, electricity, transport, and others are an input in terms of the growing economy. You must be able to grow the infrastructure ahead of the curve so that you can be in a position to accommodate this particular growth. What has happened? The infrastructure has deteriorated. We lose a lot of water. When we lose a lot of water, probably around 48%, some municipality as high as 72%, but our national average is between 35 to 40%. And we can't afford to lose a single drop of water. There is no additional drop of water that is available in the globe. It's a finite resource. Every drop counts. Therefore, to address the issues of infrastructure and losses is the right thing to do. We respond to issues of assurance of supply, the issues of reliability, so that we can improve the conditions of our people. But at the very same time, there's a worrying trend. South Africans use too much water. The relationship between human beings and water, we think there's plenty of water. When it comes to efficiency, we must improve efficiency. Currently, benchmark around the international norm on the number of liters a person will use per day. Globally, they use 173. But in our country, we're hovering at 218 liters per person per day. It has to change. Not that it has to change. When we're faced with a problem in the city of Cape Town, communities, business, they came together. We changed our behavior and our relationship. But at the very same time, in Nelson Mandela Bay, a very similar experience happened. We changed. Here in Gauteng, in KwaZulu-Natal, Durban, we're going to force them to change. Firstly, we'll encourage them. But if they don't want to be encouraged, we'll induce them. It will not be nice. We'll hit them in the pocket, those who are actually using too much water. But at the very same time, the environment where we are operating, as I believe, we will never run out of water. But the water will be available, but it will not be fit for use. Someone is affecting the quality of water. Human activities have caused too much strain on the availability of water resource. Levels of pollution from the wastewater systems of a number of municipalities where sewer runs in the streets, in people's homes, in the veld, including in the water courses. Either by mines, by industries, by human activities, including the lack of decent sanitation. If you do defecation, open defecation, we use groundwater, you use a pit toilet. A pit toilet, in some areas, they call it VIP. I don't know what is very important about that toilet. But I'm told in English it's called, not very important, it's ventilated, improved, pit latrine. But I don't know why do you put the I there. What is improvement? Because there's an impact on groundwater. Depending how deep is this, the geological formation, how there's a diffusion of the excreta to the water table. But at the very same time, the economic spin-offs, mines, they continue to pollute water. There is too much acidic mine available. There is too much groundwater we have, and we need that water back into the system. That's why we want to promote reclamation. Their technology is already working because of advancement in science and technology. We want to do recycling, use less water, manage your sludge properly, produce manufacturing input like fertilizers, produce energy. That's what we need to do. What is the story? The story is sustainability. The story is about efficiency. That's what we need to promote. And there's that possibility. But we will never be able to do these things unless we work together. We have to work together as policymakers, as practitioners, community organizations, private sector, and even labor. When we work together, that is our strength in pulling in one direction because we believe so. In other words, let's use this opportunity today to work together to promote sustainable solution. Let's also promote awareness. Also invest in long-term measures to ensure that nobody is left behind. That is the call for today. In a team, there is no I in a team. There is no I in a team. It's T-E-A-M. Alone, you will not solve the problems. I'm not the best deputy minister president will have appointed. I don't have the monopoly of wisdom. That's why we must be able to believe in the capabilities of humanity and draw from their strength. I hate friends who agree with me. I like friends who have different views that will give me a different angle on how I see issues. I don't want scientists, engineers, and innovators who will come and say agreed to. We must be inquisitorial. We must have an incisive mind and ask the questions. But I also want to say I hate people who say it can't be done. For every problem lies a solution. What kind of humanity doesn't believe there are solutions? Maybe we can quote Martin Luther King, Jr. I love him. I looked up to what he did for Americans and beyond America. He once spoke about hope, where he said hope is being able to see that there is a light despite all of the darkness. We must accept finite disappointment. You know, when you work in the lab, I was a youngster many, many years ago. I'm told most of the solutions, I hope the one gen that you have produced with your friends here, it was not by mistake. You know, when they discovered penicillin, penicillin was not those were in the lab, that was not their aim to discover it. But it was discovered by mistake. And most of the time, organizations and governments, they punish innovation. They want to punish innovation. Innovation comes at a price, and we must be able to promote it. And the only thing is that we can't allow people who are innovating to make the same mistake, because that's not learning. But to fail is to learn. In other ways, there will be many disappointments around the solutions we actually produce. But the more we produce them, we pilot them, we see their ability, then we should be in a position to proceed. But never lose infinite hope. In other words, accept a finite disappointment, but never lose an infinite hope. It's a contradiction. And contradictions, that's how life it is. When my leg goes to the front, the other one goes back, there's an inherent tension, and it's a requirement to proceed. I was asked to ask partners to put the money. One of the things that we are promoting as a country, we've achieved many strides working with private sector. We have achieved many strides working with philanthropists. Melinda, Bill Gates Foundation, and others, Coca-Cola, so, you can name them, were so happy with their contribution. And want more contributions. But when they make that contribution, it's not about charity. It's an act of justice. We have done a lot of these other solutions. Around water delivery, we are working on special purpose vehicles, concessions. You build, you own, you operate, and transfer. You build, you own, and operate. Even the way we fund. We're even looking at blue bonds and green bonds around funding, because it's the way to do. But I don't want to have a situation where one technology is promoted over other technologies. Even all these other technologies, they do have an impact on the environment. But we must be able to improve our research, our capability to minimize the impact. One day, I was a minister of energy. I was accused on nuclear matters, that I wanted nuclear. Well, I studied science, and then I dropped out of school without understanding science. But I knew that it was a solution, because it was clean, but it was expensive. It was expensive in terms of direct expense, but it can create new cities. Then there's a new story to say we must not allow carbon emissions. Technology is advanced. There's a capability to do carbon capture. One of the things that had to be exposed in the advances in science and technology and engineering, that in a desert, we have a capability to produce water. The issues of cloud seeding, never thought that it could be done, and people are living in a desert. In certain areas, there is no groundwater, there is no surface water, but there is water in the air, the atmospheric water that is available. And science has advanced so much that you can be in a position to do atmospheric water solution. I've launched one in a school in KwaZulu-Natal called Paul Petersburg. It supplies a school, and it supplies a sanitation solution. Less water, but that water is so clean, because you blow the air. When you blow the air, it becomes much lighter in terms of viscosity. Then you are able to capture it. When you capture it, it comes into contact on a reduced temperature. When you move the temperature, because for the water, because you can't break the water molecule, it has never happened. The only thing is that you can energize it, it becomes lighter. When it becomes lighter, for you to become dense and condense, you have to reduce the temperature. When you look in terms of the temperature vis-a-vis the issues of the weight. Then at a lower temperature, it becomes a dew. Then those droplets can be collected, and it depends on the amounts of droplets. They are able to produce 5,000 liters a day. That system is efficient. We don't need electricity, but we need to power it. We're using the solar light. That's how the system works. And that system is linked to a toilet. Children at home, they don't know a toilet. They go for open defecation. A facility and infrastructure is being put in there, where you separate the organic waste, the excreta, and then the issues of the liquid water that is there, you separate it. And then you can be able to do reuse. But then you can be able to process the excreta and manage the sludge well. It's part of your operation and maintenance. These are the technologies. You use less water, you use less land because there's no additional land available. When you bring something that is a package, then you don't do much damages and deterioration in terms of the soil or geological formation. Those are the solutions you want to promote. Then they are also energy efficient, but then they also produce issues of hygiene. Those are some of the solutions that Jennifer and the team of science and technology are promoting. But I want to indicate to you, this technology is not substandard. This technology does not mean that we are subhuman. It's meant for humanity. It does not necessarily mean it's not on the top end. Because companies and all of us, we must also deploy these technologies in affluent areas. There is always a big debate where people say we preferred a SWOT system. If you are going to give us a non-SWOT system, it means you are treating us less than humans. That's not true. But the conditions, there are two conditions we must address. In one condition, water is not available. When it's not available, should we deny your human right of access to decent sanitation? The answer is no. But even if water is available, water is not plain. Why will you have a sanitation toilet, a facility, that takes 10 liters? Why will you actually irrigate your garden and other facilities with clean treated water? It doesn't make sense in a water-scarce country. Those are some of the voices and the messages that we need to be able to do. As I conclude, investment in infrastructure, in technology, is not the investment on infrastructure, but is investment in humanity, is investment in our health, in our economy, but more importantly, is the investment in Human Development Index. Those who work in government, one of the biggest problems that discourages our knowledge workers and thought leaders, government has never supported in terms of its systems and regime of procurement. Government is a Water Research Commission, you have a CSIR, you have the Science and Technology Department. Why don't we become the first of takers of these solutions? If we don't demonstrate confidence in our own innovation, in our own development that is being made by South Africans, who must have confidence in our own issues. It's like in Bible, Christ was not trusted by where he was born, but he was believed by people from outside. And most of our technologies are taken by other people. They come back, value added, we'll end up even selling our IP. And it's a matter that our government, led by His Excellency President, must create conditions. We can't subject you as our entities on these procurement processes. We are an institution that is 100% owned by the ministry. Why should we go on tent? Our own solution. Why our own solution cannot be massified? Why should it must be piloted, but piloted at risk? Why should we do that? That is my only gripe I have. Many master's students, many doctorate students, many solutions that are produced by South Africans on a number of things, whether it's nuclear, whether it's these particular areas, but we don't give the offtake. And probably you must share with us today to say, how are we going to give an offtake? For the solution, there is only two aspects. There must be the demand, there must be the supply. And the demand, there must be a proper offtake, so that this generation of solutions can be taken. Want to thank Durban as a metro and other metros that are starting to take our solution. Even private sector, please don't actually take the solutions just as a corporate social investment. Your own ways of managing water and waste in your own entities must demonstrate you embrace our own solution. That's what we should embrace. Nelson Mandela would have said, for all the challenges we face, it is in our hands. You are the generation, you are the thought leaders. These problems that the globe have mapped out, they are not insurmountable. We have the capacity and we have the wherewithal to change the course of history. We are not changing the course of history for yourselves, but we are changing it for the next generation. Some here are well-read, they are professors and doctors. And doctors and professors are well-read, like Jennifer Sisfanel and others. They are well-read, Dr. Pillay and others, well-read. And you should be able to show the way. I always like to close with a story on how we must be able to push these doctors and professors and check how credible they are and how confident about the solution they give us. I always give them a story of a young man who had to double check babkhuzwa ukuthi lo professor ufunde kakuhle lo. The young man was carrying a bait in his hand. Probably in future I must say a young girl. But this young man wanted to check how well-read was the professor. He showed the prof that, "Prof, I have this bait." Then he took the bait and put behind his back. In other words, he was obscuring the sight of the professor. And then said, "Prof, I have a question for you. I want you to answer honestly whether the bait in my hand is alive or dead." And I now know that your minds are moving. We are trying to get an answer. The professor, because he was sure, he never frowned. He looked at the young man with a smiling face, a warm face, and said, "Young man, the life of that bait is in your hands." If it is another professor, we've seen other professors somewhere else, not here in South Africa, who are not properly read. That professor will have been very anxiously jumping and say, "Young man, I'm definitely sure the bait in your hand is dead." The young man will have pulled the bait and showed the professor how dumb or how stupid the professor is by guessing that the bait is dead when he's alive. But if that professor was the other professor who was also not probably the correct professor, he would have said the bed is alive. And the young man would have squeezed the oxygen and the life out of the bed. And he would have shown the professor that indeed this bed is no longer alive, but is dead. And how dare you, Prof, and say the bed is alive when the bed is dead? What is the moral of the story? It's confirming Nelson Mandela's words that the life of the bed is in your hands. You dare not kill the bed. Please keep the bed alive. In whatever endeavors you do, using science, technology, engineering, and advances in medicine to change the course of history. That bed is not yours. We have been bequeathed. It's an inheritance for the next generation. That is my message to you. Thank you very much.
You guys aren't generous with the hand claps, ne? Let's try it again. A big thank you there to Deputy Minister, Department of Water and Sanitation, Ubaba David Mahlobo. And also I want to thank Dr. Jen. I like that, it sounds so new, Jen, right? Dr. Jen. And I think in these kinds of conversations, because I'm going to repeat this, that today is about a conversation. But we were getting context, we were getting understanding. So I hope now that your brains, you've made your, you've got your notes and you're prepared. With permission in the room. So I'm not saying I'm a clown, but I'm just saying the lighter things in life, It's important to have the lighter things in life. The numbers that were thrown here this morning, 9 billion people in the world, that got me worried. Then it came closer, and it came to Gauteng and Johannesburg, and the number was like 16 million. And I'm concerned, not perhaps for the reasons that you are thinking, but because Abawasosibo Malume are nowhere closer to getting Ilobol with these numbers. 16 million. Now, what is happening? Huh? What is happening with these numbers? Hi, guys, these numbers have got me very, very concerned. So just as a point of reflection, Dr. Jen spoke of abundance. And I know that for purposes of mental wellness and manifestation, we need to always function from a place of abundance. But I think this morning we are saying, yes, let's do that, but also let's pivot to where we are seeing this abundance. I can proudly say that I'm doing my fair share because I was a resident of Cape Town when we did have to deal with water scarcity. So my showering time has improved drastically. So we are improving. And let's move our abundance thoughts and manifestations to technology. That's what I'm putting forward. So the words that I would like us to focus on, the back of your minds, are words like, as we said, investment. Why do you invest in what you invest in? It's because you understand that it's for the good of not only yourself, but those that you love. Investment. Partnership. Partnership means that not just one person has to bear the brunt, but everybody. You do what you're good at. I always say, when you think of a car, you never think about the locks until that lock doesn't work. So all of us are in a system where we need to do what we need to do so that we can all have the quality of life that we would like to have. Shared vision. I do believe that To have woken up this morning and gotten into this room, we all have a shared vision. And that vision is dignity for all. But what does dignity for all mean in a tangible way? It's sustainability, it's efficiency, it's taking on new technologies and innovation when it comes to sanitation. And before bringing up our next speaker, our shared vision is also scaling. We know the technologies exist. We've heard it. How do we scale up? And how do we etch our names into history of saying I was part of not just doing it for the bottom line, but doing it for humanity? With that being said, please help me welcome, and let's please be generous with the claps, please. Just 2 seconds more, so they can at least get on stage. Please help me welcome on stage to talk to us about how innovation can drive inclusive growth when it comes to the sanitation industry. Dr. Tsepang Musia, who is the Chief Director, Innovation for Inclusive Development, DSTI. Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you, sir.
Well, good morning, everyone. As I come on stage, I had planned to just illustrate my message with a few slides, but I realized my problems are too many this morning. When you come on stage and something is not running on your slides, you work for the department, they say you must fix it. The projector is not running, you from the technology department. If you can just remove this one from me. Yeah. Just about yesterday, we had a workshop, one of the colleagues. Will you connect? Yeah, okay, great. So one of the colleagues was saying, yeah, you work for the department, so you must be driving an electric vehicle, you know? And I was like, no, not really, Andre, that's not the case. But now when the deputy minister is presenting, you realize there are so many problems for my topic. Because he went and explained in detail, you know, comprehensively the issues of technology, the issues of investments, the issues of sustainability. So, but it's okay, Deputy Minister. I think I will just find a way to talk about my message from a different angle. I think more from an inclusion point of view. Okay. So, we've been in a partnership with the Department of Water and Sanitation and the WRC and many other partners who are in the room around this agenda of innovation in sanitation technologies. I must acknowledge that also having worked with these partners for almost over 5 years with the first phase of SASTEP. SASTEP is one of our anchor program on sanitation technologies. I'm not going to talk about that. And the budget coordination principle, how do we mobilize across government allocation of innovation budget, allocation for budget for transformative innovation. I think the Department of Water and Sanitation, as well as my minister, their exchanges just about that particular topic. So at the center is investments, but I want to add transformative investments on the other side of that discussion. So what I will try and do is just to quickly run through about 9 slides to illustrate my message, but key to it is the issue of social justice. I think when you listen to the Deputy Minister, a whole lot was coming out about social justice, fair, equitable society, being in formal settlements, being in urban areas, and the fight for a just transition. I think he captured everything. That's why I'm saying I'm very much in trouble here. I have to navigate and be selective to make sense. And 2, I'll talk about exclusion very briefly, how we see it as a department, but how we see the role of innovation to address the issue of exclusion. Transformative innovation policy in sanitation, the socio-technical system. I think the Deputy Minister also illustrated quite a lot of how the interdependent nature of sanitation to other socio-technical. You can't talk about sanitation without talking about human settlements. You can't talk about next generation sanitation technologies without talking about green buildings. So it's all intertwined, it's all interdependent. It's very key we look at it from that particular lens. But at the center of today's discussion, I think it's transformative investment. I think we call it CSI, but really how do we get investors becoming part of the discourse, becoming part of the discussion? It's not about innovation for DWS, innovation for WRC, but it's also about innovation that should be driven from an investment point of view by private sector partners. And I will conclude by illustrating opportunities that we see for employment, for income, for cooperatives, for SMMEs in the space to address inclusion. So very briefly, we all know what's happening. I think there's complexity around us. There's deep transition. The world is really grappling with the same issues that we are grappling with. So the issue of sanitation, non-sewer sanitation, is not an issue of South Africa or unique to South Africa alone, but it's a deeply entrenched discussion globally. You know, the issue of grid settlements, smart cities, and how to respond to climate change. But at the center of it, like I've mentioned before, is how do we shift to a society that's just, fair, and equitable. It's about social justice. If you look at inequality from a South African perspective, we all know what it is. If you come from townships, you know you've got access, you may not have access. If you come from a particular geographic area, in Alexandra, you may have better access. Still, it's a township compared to a rural area in the Eastern Cape. So from a geographic lens, from a spatial point of view, from an income, from a wealth and poor, point of view, we all know there is inequality. It's deeply entrenched, even when it comes to accessing municipal services. If you come from an indigent family, you know, you are subjected to a number of liters that you can have for water. But at the center of it is innovation for inclusivity. How, as we think of technologies, because it's not just technology, it's about human beings, it's about skills, it's about artisans, it's about a whole lot of issues. That's why we call it socio-technical systems. A technology is tangible, but behind the technology, you have to address, create comfort, create opportunities for people. And Uvelari says, there is also a political aspect to it. So we say social issues, technical issues, but there are also political issues that enables or hinder these technologies to be mainstream. I'll keep referring to the Deputy Minister's speech because he covered quite a lot. So when he says having confidence, opening our procurement systems, being the first buyers, being the first purchasers, and opening a market for it. So there's a political policy point of view, but there's a whole lot of dynamics that are in place. So as a department, we firmly believe that we can use innovation to drive the socio-economic impact. The extract from the IMF around exclusion from an income point of view, skewed income levels, you've got percentages there you can read. But it's a story we all know, and it's a story that affects all of us in the country, poverty and unemployment mainly. So when we've got technologies that are futuristic like this, how do we begin to think about addressing these challenges of inequality and ensuring that there is inclusion? So here is Hicks' ladder of inclusion. He speaks about different levels, and he says at level 6, where you talk about post-structural inclusion, where the state itself is inclusive. So which means the programs, the policies, but also the partners of the state are inclusive in themselves because they will have to have CSI and programs that address opportunities for youth to participate in the mainstream economy, but also making sure that the entire discourse is in itself inclusive, rather than we say, no, we will just provide skills. You know, across government, how do we reach to that level of maturity that is effective, that enables the previously marginalized or those who may not have access to economic opportunity to participate through these innovations, through the investment discussion that we have. So innovation policy and sanitation, I think from a department's point of view, we've got a country plan for innovation, we call it the decadal plan. and it places emphasis on commercializing local South African technologies. How do we take our own South African non-sewer sanitation technology to the market? And I was saying to Sudhir the other time, it will still be pointless if I can go to Plumblink and buy gablets and all other sanitation technologies, but I can't buy our own South African homemade technology. But what it will require is that we've got artisans who are trained. We've got students who are coming from TVET colleges who are trained on this technology to install them, to maintain them, to operate them. And our white paper, I think on innovation, which is where we derive our mandate, at the center of it is this agenda of transforming the socio-economic profile of the country through innovation. What sort of programs we should be driving to achieve SDGs through technology, but at the same time creating equality and transforming ownership. Here's another illustration again about the interdependence of the sanitation system with other systems. So if we want to really open up the space, we will have to have initiatives like SASTEP. But beyond SASTEP, we'll have to have ensured that there is norms and standards and sanitations that have opened up. So if for a household, the regulations are still not allowing these technologies to come through, which means our norms and standards have not opened up, so we may not really shift towards that particular direction, even with accreditation like ISO standards, even with installation and maintenance like I've mentioned, wastewater treatment plants, but policies, social acceptance, how do we really drive a change that reflects the established regimes around sanitation, which favors traditional, conservative type of technology that we have used, which are no longer sustainable. They are no longer sustainable. But key to it is the investment. In the wheel on the left-hand side around sanitation, socio-technical system is investments. So in the past, you will find that we place big emphasis on investments, and we have criteria for investments which prioritizes returns on investments. But is there perhaps a chance that the investments that we should have across government, but also in the private sector, should be around initiatives that are beginning to change the established practices? So it means the emphasis is not on the return on investment, because you can have good return on investment, but you've got environmental degradation, you've got unintended consequences. So how do we begin to refocus investment, assess the innovation investments that we have in the country from a private sector point of view, from government, and ensure that it's transformative? Because if it's transformative, it is directed, there's directionality, it's about a societal goal rather than just a return on investment. So there may be smaller technologies, but you find that when you invest in them, they begin to change the practice, they begin to rewire how we've been doing things, they begin to institutionalize a new paradigm, a new way of doing things, rather than just to say we are investing because there is a bigger return on investment. So I think that's where the biggest debate is and should be when we speak about these things. The issue of sanitation context, we have got access. I'm not going to talk to it. I think it has been well covered. The issue of climate change and how we need to shift away from unsustainable practices in water and sanitation has been explained very well. But here is a problem, which I think I was already trying to instigate in my presentation here. How do we make sure that the current investment rules are changed and they are directed towards a particular intention, so that emphasis is not placed just on one aspect of investment, but on the environmental impact? So investors engaging here today must engage also about transformative investment, which would focus on whether investments in sanitation technologies and its indirect consequences will contribute to a systemic change. Because if you can't get to a systemic change, we may just keep on investing, but we are not solving the problem at hand about climate change and sustainability and all of that. So in conclusion, we firmly believe that the sanitation space, or what we call smart toilets or decentralized water reuse technologies, a fertile ground to bring about inclusion. If you can look at this from a skills point of view, I was encouraged, I was on the other room this morning, I was shown a virtual reality app that was showing how to monitor a waste treatment plant in a school virtually. So what is the job that comes with that? These are future jobs. You can already see we need AI specialists, we need young people who are going to develop skills around the use of Internet of Things in the same space of sanitation, but how these things come together, sanitation system engineers and data scientists in the space here, rather than training people just as plumbers when we know soon the way we've been doing plumbing is going to be replaced, the way we've been doing infrastructure, green infrastructure is going to be replaced. So how do you open up a space in TVET colleges for all of these future jobs and skills to come about? More so sanitation, circular economy specialist, I'm making an example. Who is coming from a university as a circular economy specialist or a degree in that particular area? It's a futuristic job, and there's so many opportunities for these young people to go into automation processes in the sanitation space, and then be able to create new businesses, enterprise, next generation enterprises, but also being able to start up their own businesses. So we firmly believe there is a case for inclusion, but only if we are deliberate and directed about it. Even if when you look at it from an SMME and cooperatives point of view, there are many economic opportunities for youth-led businesses, and even for SMMEs. Small and micro enterprise can manufacture, they can sell, they can maintain, they can target particular emerging markets, maybe around the Free Africa Trade Agreement or SADC. Our own SMMEs could occupy that space. Even cooperatives, community-driven approaches to delivery of sanitation and water, cooperatives can organize themselves and be able to provide waste management or even building, operate and maintain new types of sanitation infrastructure that are decentralized in rural areas. So I will stop here and hope I was able to get my way around the Deputy Minister's speech, which addressed a whole lot of issues, but we firmly believe we need to be directional. We need to see this space as a space for future skills, for future jobs, but also a space where we could bring in economic participation of the previously excluded young people in the economy. Thank you very much.
The hands, guys, please, the hands. Thank you so much. Sorry, it's a little bit. Thank you. So thank you so much once again. That was Dr. Tsepang Mosia, Chief Director, Innovation for Inclusive Development, that's DSTI. Shoo, so much. And the beautiful thing about, all the information that we're receiving is that we are able to move from a place of knowledge. So when you're trying to figure out, how can I be part of this? How can I invest? How can I direct our investment? How can I make our entity? How can I put my name to this? You are getting the innovation, and then you can plug in where you feel you can be most impactful. So thank you once again. And I loved what you said. I know a lot was said, but what I took away from that was technology is about the people. So it's not just innovation for the sake of innovation. It is technology that is about the people. We solve a problem for the people, because people is also I. I'm also part of people. You also solve my problem. So once again, thank you there so much, Dr. Tsepang. So again, you're going to allow me to go in and out, lighter side of life. I grew up with my grandmother, Ginganega Gogo. Now, anybody who knows anything about Inganega Gogo is that you are bathing 6-7 times a day, right? So the conversation in this room today is also just giving me a bit of concern, because now, hey, I need to, I really need to rebalance now, you know, this bathing 7 times a day. Huh? So I have to unlearn Gogo's way of doing things, of bathing so many times. Now, the next speaker, I said to him when I met him, hey, gave me sleepless nights. I saw his name on the program, and I didn't want to do badly for my English teacher. So I was just like, okay, origin of the name. I was like, is it quick? Is it 2 syllables? Is it 1? Pishuluk, Pishlik. How do I do it? So I hope I'm going to do it justice as we welcome on stage co-founder and partner of Impact Amplifier, Mr. Max Pishlik. Please give him a round of applause. Thank you.
The name pronunciation is amazing. I'm very much a mixed breed. I've got Joburg born and bred blood. I've got Russian blood in me. I've got Ukrainian blood in me, which I'm married to a Russian. I'm in a Russian family, which makes my life very complex, very, very complex. But thank you for the WRC for inviting me today. My job really is to talk to you about shitty investments. I mean, impact investments. I mean, no, I shouldn't dig a hole for myself here. I'm talking about investing with impact. The Honorable Deputy Minister was talking about making investments. It's not charitable contribution. I think we're at a very, very interesting point in Johannesburg in South Africa now with water. Cape Town got a taste of it a few years ago with Day Zero, and we're going to see it right now. And when I looked at the modeling that municipalities had about what happens if communities don't have access to electricity for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, versus what happens if they don't have access to food, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, but what happens if they don't have access to water? That's a whole other level of human need. Before I sort of introduce myself a little bit more, if you think about water and with sanitation, it's so interesting. It's a bit like death and taxes. We avoid it. We go to the toilet, we do something, we flush something as sort of middle-income people, and it disappears. We don't see it. But it is entrenched in a massive system. And the system hasn't been innovated at scale for decades, if not 100 years. And we're now at the point where we should not be having drinking water, as the Honorable said, flushing our toilets. It does not make sense. So innovation with water and sanitation is required at every single level. Just as a touch point, if you notice the leaflets you've got around the innovations in sanitation, what we notice is a few things. The emerging technologies, very few have scaled. Many of them get to a pilot and demonstration point. They don't get past the TRLs, where we're talking about actually commercial investments into them and scaling. And we're not yet treating the technology owners and the SMEs as national security assets, which they should be. Because if you think about these solutions deploying into South Africa, they will probably form some local entity that could be a non-profit, could be a for-profit, could be a hybrid. They have to grow a manufacturing team, distribution. Not only do they often provide a technology in communities, but actually when you deploy them, they change local systems of how effluent is utilized. So they become almost the implementer of local systems, not just a product, which makes them so very important in South Africa. And if you think about the bulk of those technologies in South Africa, let's say call it a sample of 50, all of them need various amounts of capacity, different types of money, and they need to be able to develop and mature to get the real scale that we need. Another flashpoint is that unless we structurally change our economy and we start doubling, tripling incomes of local families, forever our families and households will be beneficiaries, not customers. And you notice that when families actually triple their income, their sanitation, their use of sanitation and technologies change immediately. They can move they can upwardly mobile move into new housing, new sanitation options. And I think when we've got poverty levels and unemployment levels of the scale, what we're dealing with is large amounts of households across the country who have very little disposable income and the inability to pay for themselves. So we call them beneficiaries, meaning they're not paying for the technologies and the sanitation or the water solutions offer themselves. And that's also a structural deficit, which I'll talk about now. But really what I'm here to talk about is an introduction to impact investing, because I truly believe that capital can be a form of justice as well. Not just grant money, but actually also debt. Because if we think about the amount of grant money that's available through CSI, through philanthropists, if you can actually get a customer, whoever the paying customer is, to repay that money, you can actually recycle that money. And we need to not only have more water efficiency, we need to have more capital efficiency to get the scale that we need. So a quick introduction to myself. I run an organization called Impact Amplifier. It's headquartered in Cape Town. We operate within 17 African countries. We've got offices in Johannesburg and Lagos. And you will see that in the broad circular economy and climate tech space across all those countries, sanitation is a core issue that runs. And interestingly, the innovations that are emerging that we see across the continent, some of them are local technologies, some of them are imported technologies. Many of the best ones we see are south-to-south collaborations because the nature of their households and customers are very similar if we cross from India to Brazil or China to South Africa. And what we also see is that if we think we have problems in South Africa, we are actually very lucky. And sometimes we're very harsh on ourselves in South Africa. What I see other countries facing when I go and visit them, it blows my mind. I come back feeling very, very, very humbled and grateful for the infrastructure that we have. We have everything here, folks. We've got national government with their strategies. We've got the technologies. We've got a local capital markets. We just, as the Honorable Minister said, we haven't collaborated and put it all together in into an integrated fashion. So what we do is we're a regulated asset manager, primarily with what we call venture debt. It's generally patient money that we deploy into emerging technologies. We also have a donor-advised fund, so sometimes we mix some grant money with debt. And our role is to invest and accelerate into these emerging technologies on the African continent and get them to the point where they are commercially sustainable. They move out of the technology development phase, and we help them transition through those first early capital cliff phases where the banks aren't supporting them, all the DFIs aren't supporting them, and we're typically their first institutional funder in. And when they get more mature, they get their technologies validated, they get product market fit, they can then find their ways into getting different types of money in the more commercial markets and in the more philanthropic markets as well. The other thing we do is we've got a dedicated team that measures impact and manages impact. Because of the source of money comes concessionary, often at prime less, sometimes just preservation of capital. The investors we support and deploy money for are wanting that measure of impact very, very clear. And the other thing that we do is we help build ecosystems, typically with governments, where we think about where are the innovations in particular impact sectors, what types of capacity and capital do they need, where are the gaps, and then can we help them fill those gaps? So, I wanted to kind of frame this for you a little bit because this kind of sets up the last sort of maybe 50 years of our postmodern economic development. What I've got here on the left on the slides is social value add or ecological against financial value add. And you can see on the top left quadrant, monopolies, conglomerates, corporates, SMEs, were primarily set up to generate profit, what we typically call the private sector. 30 years ago, they really didn't care about socioeconomic and ecological issues. But then as they started going on a corporate governance journey, shareholder activism journey, they started moving along and generating more impact. But they weren't set up as impact businesses. They weren't set up to solve social issues. They were set up in the economy to run an ethical business. This would, you'd see the emergence of ESG, corporate social investment. If you think 20 years back, we didn't have corporate social investment. Maybe we had the odd donation from the chairperson provided by their secretary with a nice big checkbook. But now we're starting to get a lot more sophisticated. So as you can see, traditional business or private sector is starting to move along and become more impactful. On the other side, right here, under social value add, the states, parastatal, civil society were set up to deliver a public good or service. They weren't set up to make profit. But then what they figured out is something that the state and themselves were not able to tackle with grants and donations the scale of the social issue. They started figuring out that I can only serve 2,000 beneficiaries, but the local need is 20,000. And when they did that, they started to need to innovate about their business models, and they needed to start moving up the financial value add and start trading a product or service. And therefore, there's something in between. Something that can look like a non-profit, but actually trades an income. It could be structured as a non-profit. It could be a for-profit. It could be a non-profit and for-profit. But this is the place in between of where the private sector has come in that is trying to create social and ecological value, but do it sustainably. And this is what we see and what we call in the South African environment the social enterprise movement that's happened over the last 15 years. And what you're starting to see are these social enterprises provide goods or services to government. Because government can then look at them and say, you know what, we share the same values. We're trying to solve the same issues. You've got a value system that's like, you're not trying to extract or maximize profits. You need to be sustainable. You need to generate income. You need to have a paying customer. But you're trying to solve a social issue. And what we saw is this emergence was underfunded. Whether they were developing innovative solutions for microgrids and energy, sanitation solutions, health solutions, food security, whatever it is, this social enterprise universe started to explode, and they started to realize, you know what, the only money we have is grants and donations, and that's simply not enough. So what I've done is I've showed the emergence of what we call the demand side, meaning the enterprises demanding, needing capital. Now I'm showing you the supply side, the supply of capital. Now, all of us now who want to buy financial products, whether it's private equity, unit trusts, retirement annuities, we're not buying sanitation solutions right now. We're buying BP, maybe we've moved our money offshore in Tesla and we're using an app, maybe we've got a financial advisor, but none of that money was there to create social, ecological value. If anything, it caused negative social outcomes in places like mining and many other extractive sectors where these issues occurred. On the back end, the source of money that comes through taxes that's provided to the state or is provided to civil society from philanthropists, this money of grants and donations, which we call the social capital markets, it's only a few billion. If we think of CSI, I mean, what are we at CSI now? 10, 11 billion rand? If you took all that money and it took all the money away from orphan and vulnerable children and gave it just to sanitation, it's not going to solve the sanitation issue. So what we've got to do is we need to somehow get the money out of there and move it into blended value and try and leverage some of the grant money with some blended capital structures. This means we can get the trillions that's inside of the financial markets, and those investors are actually seeing the world getting worse and worse, and they're willing to sacrifice return to solve social and ecological issues, and we can create a new capital structure that is potentially patient money. Maybe it just preserves capital. It's not only grants, it could be equity, it could be debt. And then what we do, if we've got a patient horizon, we can invest those money into the social enterprises. And when we invest that money into the social enterprises, we can start to make a dent. Now, with the public sector, whether it's an entrepreneur or an SME selling into gov, so it's a business to government solution, if government is spending a huge amount of public money annually on services, it's not going to work with a service provider that's just very emerging and brand new. We've got to get these entities to the place that they can provide public goods and be around for the next 10 years. It's not useful putting in a sanitation solution where the op cost is going to be 8 years that needs to be supported, or 5 years, and then they just go out of business, and then the technology doesn't exist and you can't support it. So what we need is new supplies of money coming in from CSI, yes, but also blended capital structures to invest into these folks, to mature them so that they can go through procurement processes with government and partner with a local municipality. And there are many use cases where this is starting to happen in South Africa. I've seen a lot of it in our National Department of Health. So to me, that's the opportunity. The opportunity is where civil society can't tackle a problem and government is overwhelmed due to urbanization, due to a growing population, due to dilapidated infrastructure. How can we get these national security assets of entities to access supplies of money and de-risk potential investors coming in at a later stage? And that's the real role of impact investing. So just as a technical definition, impact investing refers to investments made into companies, organizations, and funds with the intention to generate a measurable beneficial social and environmental impact alongside a financial return. So clear measurable impact, clear financial return. Now, financial return can be many things. If you give away a grant, you make negative 100%. You lose it all. But if you lose 50%, there's still a financial return. If you lose 20% of the money, there's still a financial return. If you just get your capital back, there's a financial return. If you get your capital back plus inflation, there's a return. And then there's also returns that are far greater in the more commercial side. In my world, impact investing is not that useful as a philosophy for returns that are massive and excessive like venture capital. If there's venture capital type returns, I promise you the private sector will step in and fund them. There are supplies of money there, but where there's more patient capital that requires different capital structures, that needs to be patient, that values the social return, values justice, says that this thing of sanitation is not a quick return story. This takes years. And we need multiple technologies suitable for commercial, industrial, rural, peri-urban, urban, residential, in all shapes and forms. And that right now, because of the issues that we're facing, I think in Johannesburg, we're going to see a flashpoint now where I think all eyes and attention to solving these issues, not just fixing pipes, but looking at the city. And what's amazing about Joburg, being born and bred here, is that this city should not be here. There's no big water source serving the city. So everything's artificial and brought in with regards to water. So we're going to see, I think, this problem compound, which means we hopefully will start to see innovations. And it requires a certain level of desperation and need that traditional solutions aren't working to put these non-traditional experimental solutions in. So what I see as an opportunity which has been mimicked in Africa is, and the last figures I saw 2023 figures came out, but they put a $1,000 paywall behind it so I could access it, and I thought I wasn't going to pay that just yet. But in 2016, the impact investing universe, in terms of billions of assets under management, was sitting at 248 billion. In 2020, it was 715. It's estimated to be about 1.2, 1.3 trillion now, and it's only going to grow. So wherever we see this second industrial revolution starting to fall over and centralized systems needing to move to decentralized systems, and where we're needing the innovations to come out and different types of money to fund that very early emerging innovation so that it finds its way into the market, this is a growing space. And when I started working in this, I left the banking sector in 2005. And when I started working in this was all family offices and foundations. And I would say impact investing is a Western US term that's been placed on us. It has a different home and base. If you think of South Africa, its unique place, our local BEE regulations, it finds a place. But it's, you know, in the US, when we first started doing impact measurement, they used to ask as one of the key measurable, what's your impact on minorities? And I was like, I'm in South Africa here. This is not minorities here. This is majorities, you know. So this is very much global north coming. And I think politically we're actually at a very, very difficult point right now. I think with the US election, a lot of money that's come in from the global north has come in from Europe, from USAID. And I think under this new administration, there's promises of a lot of funding cuts that are potentially happening. So I think we're at quite an inflection point where we're going to be needing to fund our own local innovations and not be reliant on global north money coming in onto the continent and into South Africa. But right now, what you're starting to see are the asset managers are developing impact investing funds. Granted, there's some greenwashing that happens, and what I call impact, someone else, like what I call impact, or what someone else calls impact, when I look at it, I'm like, this is embarrassing, really. So there's problems in the industry that we're trying to sort out. But I think what we're going to start to see is asset managers, DFIs, and banks come in and play a significant role, but many of them aren't taking the risk of the early stage. So if we're thinking about emerging technologies, emerging SMMEs, and their capital requirements, I'm sure if you talk to the WRC, then these innovations are not getting the capital that they need. So we really need to solve that. And I think debtors and patient debt is going to play an important role in that. I'll go on for another 2 minutes. How's that? Okay, I know we're running past time. It's important to show that we're actually part of an ecosystem. So at the bottom, we have asset owners, those who own the money, that's their capital. We have asset managers, like myself, who are managing the money on behalf of others. We have the demand side actors, who are the actual innovations themselves. And then we've got the service providers, where we would also be one of those, the universities, the accelerators, and all of us need to collaborate and provide the right quantum of money and services to the demand side at the right stage. And ultimately, in my world, if I don't return money, I fail. So we actually need to also, need to be both risky, but also manage risk. And it's very difficult at very early emerging stages to manage risk. And I've probably been burnt more times than I'd like to from that. But the point of this slide on the bottom is really that we have to enable an ecosystem around the sanitation solution. And once we get the ecosystem right, and DSI is heavily involved in it, TIA's involved with it, the universities are involved, and once we get that ecosystem humming, we can bring in new emerging technologies, we can put the right quantum of money at the right stage, and get them to the maturity that they can actually really serve our communities, that they can be managed over long periods of time, and then create the justice that we want. I'll stop there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Max Pishluk coming through there, co-founder and a partner, Impact Amplifier, and he was talking to us, his words, not mine, about shitty investments. You know, Max, you spoke to ROI, and I think a lot of times, a lot of entities, a lot of corporates, when they think ROI, they think, you know, bottom line, the money. Show me the money. I think it is important, and I think it has been one of the things that we can say is been a golden thread, is that human dignity, human life. Because we all know, and I think, with COVID in 2020, it really put a lot of things in perspective, that real wealth is the health. So with safer, sustainable sanitation and the innovation that's allowing us to access that safe and sustainable sanitation, we are getting true wealth, the wealth of life. And once you have life, the ching-ching for the business is coming. So once again, as Deputy Minister said, it's not about giving a helping hand, it's an uplifting hand. So when you think about the investment that you're about to make, the return on that investment is that for generations to come, they're going to be healthy, and that the service and the products that you are making and the problems that you're solving, there'll be someone to solve it for. So we're about to make our way into a panel discussion. So for some people, they might remember, I'm not saying that I'm young and I'm not saying other people are old, but I'm just saying, some people will remember more than others that after taking in information, there's an exam. But the exam here is going to be nice, because just for speaking, 100%, degree completed. That's what we're going to do. But before we get into that, we are going to take a look at our screen and see, the value proposition and opportunities for implementing innovative sanitation technologies. This, to me, is also a moment that I think is very human, because sometimes we're far removed from things because it might not be our day-to-day reality. But this video, I hope connects to you, and you can see how you investing and finding out how to invest, you can really change the lives. Can we play the video?
Safe, dignified facilities. That's where the South African Sanitation Technology Enterprise Program, SUSTEP, a tech accelerator program within the Water Research Commission, WRC, steps in.
The new toilets are flashing.
The program is revolutionizing sanitation by fast-tracking innovative, sustainable technologies that improve health, save lives, and protect the environment. The ARMLOO is a low-flush toilet that uses only 2 liters of water to flush. Its unique Votex flush cleans with minimum splash, ensuring maximum hygiene, while the patented water seal prevents odors and reduces blockages. Ideal for water-scarce areas, it enables flush toilets where water is limited. The dewdrop system treats wastewater using natural processes powered by PV panels and integrates into a compact 6-meter container. It relies on rainwater and a borehole, ensuring a reliable, low-maintenance water supply. The new generator is a modular off-grid sewage treatment system that uses anaerobic membrane bioreactors, nutrient capture powered by solar energy. It's a self-sufficient solution that recycles wastewater for toilet flushing, contributing to sustainable sanitation in remote areas. The Clear Recirculation Toilet employs an advanced biofilm MBR treatment process to recycle water. The system produces clean, safe effluent that is further disinfected through ozone treatment, ensuring high-quality water for reuse. It's a true example of water recycling at its best. The Aquanic treatment system is a modular solution that recycles both black and grey water into pathogen-free, reusable water for toilet flushing and irrigation. Using biological and electrochemical processes, it can even be retrofitted to existing septic tanks to improve overflow water quality.
Since the installation or the development of the new toilets here at the school, it has improved attendance here at school.
Yo bethunana andiyazi kwayindlela engabulela ngayo. We are so proud ngezi toilets. Like isonwabile sisisikolo saseqhoboshaneni nisizisele idolophu ezilalini.
Ngiphakama nokubonga kakhulu ama toilet esokhelweyo apha esikolweni aluhlobo oluhle kakhulu and ehluke kuzo zonke izikolo zalapha.
It takes a village to build a future of safe, dignified sanitation for all. With strong partnerships and shared goals, we're turning innovation into action. SUSTEP, empowering sanitation, transforming lives.
Encouragement is very important. Like a toddler, one step, yay. So that story, and those are just snippets of some of the feedback that was given by the people who have been impacted, positively so, by something that you might take so lightly because you wake up in the middle of the night, there's no thought to it, and you just go about your business. The young boy saying, look, I can wash my hands. You know, one of the teachers at one of the schools spoke about how the dignity, even of the teachers, because a working day, for them to be able to get through it, they will not be able to relieve themselves at school. So you can imagine a distracted teacher. And that's the kind of impact we are talking about. That's the kind of dignity we are talking about that is being restored. The parents there speaking about, you have brought the city to the rural areas. The pride in that. And you could be part of changing that story. Because one of those children, the hope that they now have of becoming a pilot, a doctor, of working for your company and advancing your mission, that's where it starts. So now please help me welcome, and she's at the back of the room, so please give her like a really proper round of applause so she can get to the front. Please help me welcome Dr. Valerie Naidu from the Water Research Commission. She is going to be introducing the group of panelists that are going to be joining us on stage, but also facilitating that conversation. She is the Acting Executive Manager, Stakeholder and Communication from the Water Research Commission. A round of applause, please. Yes, can we get this mic for you?
Okay. Is it on?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So firstly, I think before I start, let me welcome as well our board chairperson, Dr. Mahlobo, from the Water Research Commission. Maybe if you can stand up and... Dr. Mahlobo provides a nice interface. We do water and sanitation. She does renewable energy. So it's all about the future. So colleagues, I'm going to ask our four panelists to come up. So from the Department of Basic Education, Ms. Nchabaleng, from Amgeni Utukela Water Board, Mr. Zama, from Impact Investor again, because we want to ask him a few more questions. Mr. Max Pitchaluk, and from Anglo-American, Mr. Stuart Seat. If you can please just come up, and can we have a round of applause? So we're not going to get too technical. I think today's moderation in terms of the panelists is really to get perspectives and experiences. Because we're at a stage where, as the SASTEP program, we have incubated and worked with these commercial partners. We have set standards of ISO 3500. So it is not an exclusive space, it's an inclusive space. It means any innovator out there, if you choose to innovate towards resource efficiency, towards full recycle toilets, towards better use of sludge and better treatment of water, whatever technology you have, this space is open for you. Well, what we have done is used 4 commercial partners in this space to show where we could be in the future in terms of water-efficient sanitation systems. So I wanted to make that point because often when you come to these platforms, we are accused of selecting winners and losers. That's not the case. The case here is the de-risking that is required to move to these decentralized systems. So let me now start. I suppose when we started this little project, we needed to demonstrate some technologies. And a key partner in this was the Department of Basic Education. I say they're a key partner because to some extent, they've been a great partner in providing sites to test the technologies. They've been a great partner in terms of opening up and listening and saying, well, is the future different? Can we offer a different future to VIP toilets for schools in South Africa? So what I want to do is give Ms. Kgagelo Nchabeleng a chance to maybe take us through this journey, but also speak to the challenges and where they are looking for support from all sectors, from government departments, but also from the innovators themselves, but also corporates, and how could they come and partner to improve the lives of children in schools. We often say in the WRC it takes a village, and I think today we're speaking to the village. So maybe give us some perspectives of the partnership. Where do you see yourself as a department going, and what would you like to see happen as this collaborative set of partners in this room? What do you want to ask of them and yourself?
Thank you so much, Val, for the opportunity, and good morning, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, I saw you just stepped out, and good morning, the Chairperson of the Board, the CEO, Board of, I believe there's another Chairperson for Umgeni Water, good morning, and then good morning, colleagues. And also I'm glad to see that some of the commercial partners are here. Those are the people that we've worked with as a department. Val, you know very well that this process was never smooth, but we managed, based on the video that we just saw now, I'm so glad to see the changes that has brought in to the department, especially in our sanitation facilities at schools. Most of the schools are in deep rural, especially in the Eastern Cape, where they do not have enough access to water. So water is still a challenge. But through the Water Research Commission, we have signed an agreement with them as a department where they indicated to us that we go and assess a school, and based on the assessment, we can determine the system that can be provided for that school. So as a department, we appreciate all this beautiful flashing sanitation, as much as they are saying you've brought in the city into these rural schools, and that's what we have just observed. So the process was never smooth, but we managed to go through different systems with different service providers, the commercial partners, where we also had our question as a department that if you are building a system in this deep rural, issues of electricity, how are you going to incorporate that? The issues of water, the fact that we are aware there's no water, how are you going to use a flash system in this deep rural area, and of which at the end of the day, the end product is brilliant based on the result that is on the ground. So the challenge now with us, looking as a department, we need to take over ownership on the system. Most of the schools where we have implemented the systems, they are low enrollment numbers. So of which, looking at the maintenance cost that they are receiving as a school, it's not enough. So the problem now comes back to who is going to maintain this system. So O&M now it kicks in, and now to a point we said, Water Research Commission, how do we deal with this? Now as a department, we had to go now in the Eastern Cape, engage our provincial education department that we need to find a way that we need to maintain the system. So there's no way that we can just drop the ball like that. So currently as a department, including our provincial education department, in the Eastern Cape, we have arranged a session with Amatole, so of which we'll be visiting all these 4 systems in the Eastern Cape, where now the province has indicated to us that Amatole will be implementing and monitoring the systems on behalf of the province. So they will be meeting with the commercial partners, explaining to them how the system works, what is it that they need to attend to when they have to maintain the systems. So the first question was the issue of availability of materials. Is it something that if there's a pipe that breaks here, are we going to procure abroad, or is a material that is going to be available within our building, within our, what do we call this? Pardon? Yeah, within the province, no, I mean the hardwares. So within the hardware, is it a material that we can access from every hardware? And of which, yes, that was the case. So based on that, we are glad to have this. Now, I am so glad to see that there are more partners here. Now, as a department, we also thought of a point where we are saying, we have other stakeholders where they are maintaining the system. So for example, we've got No Cross South Africa. They've built in sanitation for us, and every now and then they visit the school to see if there's anything that they need, if there's anything that needs to be maintained. So now as a department, we are pleading with the commercial partners here and investors that why not think about adopting a school? These schools, they've got this current existing systems, so of which now we cannot hold the commercial partners ransom that you need to maintain this forever. So as investors, maybe think about an option of adopting a school with this different type of system. So now where you are able to maintain the system, because looking at the cost, especially for the low enrollment number, the different quintiles, they are unable to afford to maintain all the systems. So that will be our question as the department, that please think about it before you leave this room today. Thank you, Vol.
Thank you, Kahila. I think the issue of operations and maintenance is critical. It's something as South Africans we can't run from. Whether you're in sort of urban areas as well, we have these large, massive, 400 megaliter per day wastewater treatment plants. You can't run away from that operations and maintenance as well. So as a country, I think we have to find the kind of solutions that allow these systems to become sustainable and the adoption to be taken on. And I think in the room, we're trying to find this brains trust as to how to do that better, how to form those kind of partnerships. So I'm going to move on to Mr. Zama. You're from Umgeni Utukela Water Board. It's always been a very strong partner of the WRC in the sense that they're always seeking new solutions, looking to scale up their people. And you took on the role of, I would say, implementing one of the technologies. Can you tell us a little bit about your thinking around it? Why did you go about doing that? How do you see the future sort of scale up of these types of technologies for your geographic region that you operate in?
Is it working? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to my chair sitting there. It's quite a pleasant surprise. I was not expecting him here. So I feel the wind beneath my wings right now. And to the Deputy Minister, the Chairperson of Water Research Commission, and other officials in the room. Yeah, I think I would be happy to say I invented the idea as a person who's leading this charge within our organization. But I went to Exco to present a problem that we had in one of the schools, and I was looking for funding. Exco approves our projects, and so I was looking for the approval to be able to do a certain project, and the conversation got animated, and we ended up with a situation where our Exco says to me, go out and look at other alternative sanitation methods that can be used, because we're looking at schools and our community, and everyone knows that we are a predominantly rural organization as Umngeni Uthukela. So we look at our terrain and we said, probably we require the same prototype type of answer that cell phone provided for communications in the country, where it got decentralized in terms of the cables and the towers and so on. So we said, for our point of view, probably we're looking for some decentralized systems. And to my surprise, because I was an outsider within the industry and also having not worked in the government space, fortunately I found out that already technologies that were existing, and we immediately hooked up with the university. Because they were piloting some of the projects in the area, they took me through a full day tour where we explored pilots in Durban and in Pietermaritzburg. And I came back very, very energized and excited. And the issue was, where do we start? And we had a couple of, we brought in the same school that had provoked the thinking. And along the way, we had an opportunity to help a school that is in Gandla, which is a deep rural school, where with the Water Research Commission, we decided to install the system. And it's, guys, you need to see this in terms of the eyes of the communities when we start to unveil and hand over these projects. The amount of excitement that comes up is quite amazing. We have another project that we just recently finished, which is a different type of project at DeWatt, which has the economic spin-off. I had Tsepang also touching on that, which we are going to be unveiling and handing over in the next couple of weeks. We are excited as Umngeni Uthukela. I'm glad also that our chair is here. We're going to go back to our board and our executive and look for more money, because at the moment they are quite expensive. So we're looking in terms of our commitment to be able to implement at least 1 or 2 per financial year. So that's the level of excitement that Umngeni Uthukela has within these systems, and we are happy with the opportunity to work for partners. Our new strategy that we're going to be taking through for approval as well calls us to do a lot of collaborations and look for partners, because we are serious about making a dent in this regard as Umngeni Uthukela. Thanks, Val.
Thank you. I think what you've brought out there is some critical points, right? We were speaking today about tech readiness levels, de-risking, ecosystems, and now you start to see the handing of the baton, basically. That as WRC, we invested heavily with partners, funding partners like DSI, like Gates Foundation, and to some extent, the work we've been doing is around de-risking. So that partners like Umngeni, like corporates, can now come on board and say, how do we invest on it? And when you invest, you create demand. And when you create demand, you start to strengthen the companies that have created these innovations. They are at a vulnerable stage. Their early stage prototypes can die very quickly, and anyone who's in the innovation space knows that. So it is part of how do we continue to work. Now, typically, we would have just tested a tech, put a report out, and walked away. But we've taken a journey. And so all of you in the room are, to some extent, now part of that journey. This is part of that latter stage, the TRLs 8, 9. How do we get it into that commercial space? How do we create the demand? So Max, you spoke a little bit about the space where these emerging tech, especially when it's not just about return on investment, it is about changing behaviors, it's about environmental benefits, it's about social benefits. How would you go about, one, working with commercial partners that are at this sort of vulnerable stage, but also other impact investors to make them understand more why it is important maybe to invest in these emerging technologies going forward. And as you quite correctly said, you're not just investing in the tech, it's in the value chain, it's in the jobs, it's in that microeconomy around that school, around that town. Give us a little bit more insight in how we could go about thinking about this.
So, try to make this specific to sanitation. With money, you can deploy any infrastructure you want anywhere. You just deploy it, but it's the O&M and the long-term operating costs being funded that really shape whether this is going to last and be utilized. And I think if we take the impact lens off for a second, and because a lot of projects might be piloted in rural schools as an example, but we take the technology provider, the company, and we think about, okay, over a 5-year cycle or a 10-year cycle, how do we build the infrastructure of this company, its scale, to reduce the O&M costs per unit right down? Now, if it's a very fragile company and many of the parts and materials come from all sorts of odd sources and low supply, long lead times, O&M has to be flown in at worst case when there's a problem. But if we think about how should this company grow and what stages, what you sometimes find is actually to get to the rural use case, you should probably start actually at the more scalable urban case to build the structure and the commercial value and the team, and then that reduces the O&M costs potentially. Or if you're going to invest in a rural use case, you might want to cluster 5, 8, 10, 12, 15 installations all together that then reduce the per unit cost. And I think what we have to do is look at both how do we want to achieve impact, and maybe the greatest impact we have is delaying the early stage impact now and allow these companies to mature to then make it viable at scale in more rural areas. So I want to put that because there's a tension there. I have an impact need now, which is supporting a school, but let's say it's one pilot case in the Eastern Cape. Managing and monitoring that is actually per unit quite expensive. So we either have to build scale around that, but I think what we have to do is blend the need for impact over a longer period of time and think about what is the right commercial road path for the technology so that it can serve the impact case at scale over a medium and long term. And there are actually competing needs there. So yes, I think grants play a very important role, and a lot of these technologies and SMEs and nonprofits are deploying that money. But if we actually took what is the growth path for that company, we have to make it's a slightly different capital case over what cascading of time, where the ultimate objective is still the rural case and still schools, but it's the road how to get there that creates a sustainable company that can last for a long, long time, if that makes sense.
Thanks. I think that's some food for thought also for the commercial partners in terms of how you think about operating in this space and strengthening the foundations of your company and supply chains as we move forward. I think finally we have from Anglo-American, Stuart. I mean, Anglo-American, it plays in difficult environments, less water, remote, difficult access to supply chains, communities that to some extent are low income. Give us a little bit of your perspective around some of the projects you all have rolled out in communities. What sort of lessons should we take forward? How do you build those communities? It's not just about the tech or the service. It's really about how do you improve and work with communities to build those relationships that maybe the rest of us can also take going forward as to how to invest properly and appropriately in those spaces.
Yes, thanks. I think exactly what has been discussed around today's discussions, our communities and very critical around the mining operation, because exactly it's our license to operate. Without our communities, we fail completely. So, and we're not getting everything right. We spend a lot of effort and a lot of time. And I think the first aspect has been much more around water supply. Sanitation has taken a little bit of a sort of backward step in terms of that. But we as Anglo have then focused around a lot of what probably was discussed today around schools and looking at sanitation, fit for purpose type sanitations. But it is a challenging environment, and one of the things, and some of the discussions have been very good around impact investing. I think the challenge is big. There's a lot of backlog. So one of them is to say, well, how do we get to the end point? Where are we going? How do we get there? And I think some of the mines can't do it all. I think that's the one step, and it comes back to the things we've been talking around collaboration. It's critical that we all work together in terms of looking at what is the end goal, where are we trying to go, and how do we get there by pulling everyone together, government, municipalities, mining, and the communities themselves. I just want to add, in terms of, obviously from a mining perspective, we embrace innovation fully. Especially obviously we're miners, so we're embracing the innovation around our mining operations, and how do we make that more efficient? We spoke about in terms of return on investment for our shareholders. It's critical that is happening. And I would like to see some of those innovations, as you say, going out into the communities, looking at how we can address some of the issues through innovation. It just makes perfect sense. And I think just obviously again, one of the things about mining is it's a little bit cyclical. So one day you're making profits like you can't believe, and there's lots of money around CSI, and generally people are quite happy. And then the next year suddenly the commodity prices fall through the floor, and then we've got to cut back. And it's about, again, coming back to collaboration and looking at how do we leverage off some of the partners so that's a little bit more, call it sustainable, or a little bit more leveled out for the communities, because I think they do then potentially suffer through some of those cycles, just like the mining companies would be doing as well.
Just to maybe just add a little bit, when you leave those communities, are you leaving them with the skills to operate your innovations and your tech, or are you actually doing it on their behalf?
So again, if you looked at some of the projects we have done around sanitation, and this is coming from 20 or 30 years of experience, not my experience, just my picking up on projects that didn't work. I think initially you would say, well, let's give everything, and that's where sometimes the failure is there. And some of the talk again today about how do you leverage off of communities in terms of operations and maintenance, building expertise, building job opportunities, circular economies around some of that. So yes, there's been failures in the past around trying to provide too high a level of service. And then, coming back to where we are currently, we're looking at much more in terms of saying, on the schools program that we did in the last 2 years, dry sanitation, much more fit for purpose. Communities can actually manage that themselves. So somewhere there's a balance, and again, it's all about looking at which communities can handle which things. But again, and one of the things that very negative, I don't like the terms, things like wastewater, and I won't mention the shit, SHIT, in terms of, I'd much rather be seeing that as some sort of value that we're looking at in terms of the circular economy. Again, if you look at some of the large wastewater works, Northern Works, they're composting some of that. We've got to be looking at this in terms of how do we turn these into products at all levels. And because at the end of the day, unfortunately, if there's no value in it for the community, then it's going to potentially fail in terms of the O&M, because somebody needs to pay, unfortunately.
Thank you. So I'm very aware of the time, so I hope that was a quick but a very insightful set of views that have come from experiences of partners, a range of partners in this space. And I hope that once we are done, when we are networking, we can just explore a little bit more and unpack and see where other collaborations could occur going forward. So once again, let me thank you. Thanks for your insights. Thanks for taking the time to come and be part of this event. Thank you. Sorry?
I just want to say that there are actually 2 funds in the circular economy focused on waste that will be launching next year with us. One's a grant fund for emerging technologies that have a pilot down, and the second is a 140 million rand debt fund in the circular economy focused on waste. That'll launch in Q2. So if you folks just want to join our newsletter at Impact Amplifier, please do. If you are a technology provider, we'll start looking at pipeline from about February next year.
Can we continue with a round of applause? Thank you so much. I think, let me quickly, can I just get 2 mics? We're at the tail end of our program, but I think we need to give you opportunity to share your thoughts, ask a question. You know, you could be sitting on something great that needs to be heard in the room. So I think to open up the conversation, you've taken in a lot of information. So perhaps just to start the conversation going, we're probably going to take about 3 questions. And I think then that's going to get the conversation started. And then as we move to network and also for the virtual experience, then we can continue those conversations. We can swap emails. We can do coffee. We can go for runs, whichever one, and let's talk about this very important conversation. So let's talk about how are you in your entity doing CSI currently? How are you approaching CSI? You know, because we all know people are always coming through. So how are you choosing the projects that are you choosing when it comes to CSI? Also, are there existing opportunities within your entity? And if not, how can we create opportunities that will align with your goals so that we can channel the funds? And then also, how do we scale up? I heard that one there coming through from Max about, yeah, you want to do good, but also, you know, as they say on airplanes, if you don't have the oxygen, your help is going to be very short-lived and then we all die. So how are we going to tackle it in terms of ensuring that the entity continues to make the money so that they can funnel it into then solving this problem, so that they have the people to then pay the entity to make more money? So let's see by show of hands, who are the people who are sitting in front in the lecture halls who have the first statement to say? Not all at the same time, guys. Should I pick? Oh, is that what? Oh, goodness. Can I get a mic, please? It's already on. I just feel like somebody, like their eyes look like they're deep in thought and they've got a solution. They've got a question, and she's wearing a beautiful color. Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Any comments, thoughts with all that you have consumed today, whether it's a question or you have a solution to share with us?
Thank you for that. I think I do have a solution. I've been involved in technology and innovation for just over 10 years, and I do believe that this session in particular around corporate social investment is really a key solution to what we need to achieve. So I've seen many SMEs come through with technology solutions. I've worked closely with Impact Amplifier, where they've identified what impact investment would do. So if we take the SMEs that have got good solutions and they're ready for scalable opportunities, and we're able to partner with government, especially the DSI as well as the WRC, and bring the partners together, and you have the right partners that are looking at these solutions, then we could really scale it up. Because I think we've seen too many young people come up with really brilliant solutions. They've come through the WRC, they've come through DSI. They just need the right partnership and that scalable opportunity. And through impact investing, as well as looking at taking a fund that's set aside, corporate South Africa, who's sitting in the room, we're hoping that they would put their funding in so that you could make the fund greater and then the scalable opportunities would be well received.
Thank you. I think that's such a brilliant way to start. Thank you, yes. And especially because I think the conversation, just hearing it, is that we are not short of the solution. We're definitely not short of solutions. But, you know, the money makers, we need you to also now buy in. We need you to also now see the value in some of these outlying innovations and take the risk. And I think with that being said, corporate, anybody from corporate perhaps who can just kind of also educate us in terms of how you are currently seeing and approaching CSI. And all of this to say that so that as, you know, the innovator, as the government department, so that we are speaking a language that also makes sense to you. At least we're approaching you with that. If perhaps we can get that POV from somebody from corporate. Anybody from corporate? Or anybody who has a thought about how we can make the language meet so that when we enter into those rooms, it's not chalk and cheese. Any takers? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so look, I work for a company called Bidvest, and we do a lot of cleaning, hygiene, sanitation. And one thing that I can see is that there's a lot more structure in terms of the investment than what there was 10 years ago. So I think what Max was saying about the chairman and the big checkbook versus where we are now, it is significantly more structured. But I do believe that the appetite seems to be moving in the right direction. I think there's a much greater awareness, and I guess necessity is the mother of all inventions. So when we realize that we are heading towards day zero quickly, it does help to focus our attention.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I think that's a very important thing, because a lot of times as innovators, creators, you are so in your mind about the innovation, you know. They speak about this in terms of, you know, the film industry, where they're like, that's why you must have a very strong executive producer, because the director is going to tell you, I want us to blow the building up, blow up Santon, and you're like, we don't have the money, you know, but you have to meet each other halfway. And I think just one more question before we go to our vote of thanks. Scaling up. At this point, I'm sure it's just like there's no wrong answer. Any answer will do. Where do we start? We have to start somewhere. How are we scaling up? Thank you.
Thanks. You see, the term scaling up sometimes is a scare, but I'm going to speak from the perspective of a water board, because as Mrs. Zama was presenting from Umgeni Utugela Water Board, I think he drives those initiatives, but I think him alone may not probably add value in the sense of the scaling up, which I think we're sitting around to look at. And I was then looking at my colleague on my right here, Dr. Jen, because there is an organization for the water boards, because where we are with this innovation, we probably may not, as maybe speaking for myself, may not be fully abreast with the varieties of what is out there I think in the perspective of needs to be assisted so that it can take off and then be where it ought to be, because anyone who goes into innovation obviously has a vision, has a thinking, and obviously there is that business element in that innovation. Then us probably as water boards, we ought to then create a space. So I think, Dr. Jen, where one would probably and I need to look into is to pull together, I think, in the nature of what kind of innovation I think WRC has actually facilitated, taken over, because we as a water board, we owned by government, 100% owned by government, but it's our procurement policy that is key. If in our procurement policies we can make provision of, we would ensure that we would deal with this kind and type of innovation, following or tapping into a database that is created and regulated by Dr. Jen, then our policy would allow us. Then Abonhlanhla would then know where they must look for technology that is out there. Because you see, when the AG comes, the AG simply says, how did you know about this? And then you draw a blank. But if our policy speaks to how we as an organization are set up to promote and ensure that any innovation that is out there, it's given a space to grow and scale up. So I think, in my view, one can make a commitment, I think on behalf of OutSISA, that one can look into the SCM policies that we have, I think, as various boards. Because if we don't create that space within that SCM, we will obviously be not adding value into the scaling up. I think Dr. Jen would really be encouraging innovation, but they aren't takers. So I think we can look at the water boards to facilitate these takeovers.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you. Thank you so much. A round of applause. A commitment. Would you like to, please, Dr. Jen?
Can I stand up?
Oh, you may, yes.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Ntlatla, for your sterling work, but also for the comments that's been made. I think we also have a responsibility to clarify the narrative. This innovation is not for poor people. It's not for rural areas. It is meant to address the challenges around a finite resource of water. It is meant to address situations such as that which was in the news just a few days ago. It said there are a number of new development estates, these high-end estates, that actually have been constructed without approval. I don't know if you read about that. That's the first part, the approval part. But the second part is that most of them shouldn't be going up, because the wastewater treatment works surrounding those areas are actually full to capacity. So how would you build a billion rands estate, and then what happens to the waste? So we also need to start being cautious around that, around these, and I think that's the messaging that we want to take out there. It is around, even around those spaces, these innovations, decentralized technologies have got a role to play, because you cannot approve at local government level, and I think that's what the DM was also focusing on, the failure at municipal level to tackle some of these things. It's either it's a yes or a no. If it's a no, what are the options? Then these are the options we are talking to. It's similar to the cell phone market. When cell phones were introduced, they were actually for the high end. But eventually, everybody has got a part that they want to buy, depending on the spectrum. So that's the first part that we're talking to. Secondly, it is really around the high-end water users, right? Like places like this, Sentin, where there's all these high-rise, there's all of that low pressure. We can't maintain, because we haven't expanded our reservoirs and we don't have enough water. Now, these high-rise buildings and the waste that is generated, we need to start rethinking. So it's really, the problem is even more, or when there is a lot of water, because it means, and a lot of people and a lot of money, because it means we must use a lot of water to convey all of that shit. I say shit because we must call it what it is. Sometimes we really like to call a fork a garden tool. But, so that is where we're at. But in the meantime, where we have been able to make the changes, it's in the rural areas, in the schools and all of that, but we must not look at them in that way, that it's a You know, I think I loved what the DM said, it's transformational investment and not so much a helping hand. And so that's where we need to look at. But I think from our side, the work continues. We were very good to hear. We will share the messages around the investments that you've spoken about and the calls that are called about. But we are also calling on partnerships. A lot of entrepreneurs are not business people in nature. They are driven by a project, and then they do that and they achieve, and then they are looking for the next best thing. We are also looking for investors to support that so that those can become the new industries. We are also looking to contribute in the curriculum of the TVETs around creating the skills that will be able to be responsive. So I think it's really a complex issue that we are playing a role in trying to resolve. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jen. You know, I like this. This is the very last hand that I'm taking. Always so slow, and then everybody's inspired. And just time then is against us. Yes, sir.
I want to build on what Dr. Jen has just said. And the minister is here, so we have to also, I'm not a spokesman for the department, but I need to also highlight the good work the department is doing. So the department has initiated a lot of regulatory changes, and I want to share two of them. One, it's in the revision of the Water Services Act, is that it's going to become a criminal offense if you unjustly put pressure on already pressurized water and wastewater systems. So if you're a municipal manager, a mayor, and a developer that puts and imposes pressure on the existing infrastructure, knowingly, that's a criminal offense, and that is going to be in the Act. You will be charged in that direction. The opposite side to enable it is that the department is writing regulations that allow you to go off the grid using these kind of solutions. So they're encouraging developers, those that their developments are stuck because they're waiting to get access to the bulk infrastructure, and municipalities don't have capital to actually provide that. So the department is encouraging developers through this new legislation to use innovative technologies to go off the grid, not put pressure on wastewater systems and water systems. So those are in the pipeline. There's further details in that, but watch the space on the revision of the Water Services Act and the norms and standard. So that just enables the sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we have reached the tail end, and before we welcome our final speaker for the morning, I just want to, you know, Dr. Jen also just made mention about the TVET, and it takes me back to, I think, the importance, I think it was Mayor Chabeling, who mentioned about, you know, adopting a school, and perhaps why that would be a good place to start. You know, when I heard about Umgeni Tugela, you know, water, for me, I went to school in the Pietermaritzburg area, so Umgeni is very much in my mind, you know, and I remember the animations they used to have that they would bring to our schools of a droplet of water, and that was a character. So when you start at that level, then you're not having to change behavior, you know? It's all about now, you're just reinforcing. So it becomes better to unlearn bad, you know, habits, or moving from a place of lack of knowledge. You know, I'm very cautious now. You know, the shower situation, you open the water, and you shimmer out. You close the water. Shimmer in, and you shimmer out. And this is a very, very real thing, because once again, I have to say this, that sometimes privilege or our privileges kind of, we think that they shield us from taking part, and it's a them problem. In Johannesburg, it is very real. As I said, Cape Town, it was very real, and it was real. And And sometimes you don't know. Every morning, living in the northern parts of Joburg, you don't know. Is it, are you getting a shower in or not? Because you open that tap and you're not sure if you're going to get water. The reality of it is that already within parts of Johannesburg, you can't drink the water. So it's no longer a them problem. It really is an us problem, which means we need an us solution. With that being said, looking very vibrant, and I love it because I think it's also encouraging for us to go back to school to say, we grew up thinking that, people who are smart, whatever, they just, they were wearing those plaided jackets with the leather patches here. Hey, the fashion of our academics these days. Please help me welcome, and let's show out, guys. We're about to go home. Let's show out with our applaud here. For the vote of thanks, the WRC Board Chair, Dr. Ritabile Malamo. Yes, thank you. I like that. Can we give you?
Thank you very much, Dr. She did a fantastic job, didn't she? So can we give her a round of applause, please? Okay. I have my notes here, and I will take them from here. That's why I'm not standing there. But first of all, let me take this opportunity to acknowledge the Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable David Mahlobo, the Chairperson of Umgeni Tugela, Advocate Kuzwayo, I hope I got it right, the CEO of the Water Research Commission, and all the executives, and all our distinguished guests. I apologize if I don't mention your name, but maybe let me start by first thanking the organizers of this event. CE and team, I'm glad that you decided to bring this event to where the money is. You decided to bring it to Sandton. There is this adage that goes, if the mountain can't come to Mahomet, Mahomet must come to the mountain. And I think the WRC team deserves a round of applause for organizing this event and bringing it here. And again, we couldn't have organized this by ourselves. As you know, the WRC is an entity of the Department of Water and Sanitation. They are our anchor. And DM, we are here as your hands and feet to ensure that we implement the mandate of government, of the department and of government. So yes, today we're talking sanitation, we're celebrating International Toilet Day. But at the heart of everything that we do is always about thinking about the socio-economic well-being of our people in this country. And one of the critical elements is sanitation, because sanitation brings dignity. And so really, thank you very much. CE, I like the fact that you say, as we're talking about sanitation, and it's great that it's been piloted at schools, this is not a technology for the poor. This is a technology for all of us. You are aware of the age in which we are living. Yes, as a country, we are a signatory to the UN SDGs. We have targets around SDG 6, which are important for us to achieve. But ultimately, it's all about national sovereignty. It's making sure first that the people of our country get the services that they need, that they deserve. And that's why it's important to be doing what we are doing. So the theme of today is an important one. It's about school challenges in rural areas, but importantly, it's about how to make use of our very finite resources more efficiently. I had the stats when I came in this morning or this afternoon that of the 11 billion CSI funding, we get about 53 million as a water and sanitation space. If you calculate that, it's not even 1%. So we really appreciate your presence, private sector, but we would like to call you to action. Let's partner. Yes, Max said we need to scale the companies so that the companies can really roll out these projects. But we need a critical mass of pilots, because even those critical mass of pilots are the ones that are going to help scale entrepreneurs. And so I think CSI companies, we are open. I believe CE, this is the first of many engagements that we will have with the CSI community or the business community. I know we've been engaging, but this year we're becoming more deliberate. In the next couple of years, we're going to become more deliberate. We want these solutions to be rolled out across the entire country and not in just a few villages. But those that can afford these solutions should actually buy them, because it's good. It's good for them. And even businesses in these high-rise buildings, as the CE has indicated, it's not just about meeting your ESG goals or being sustainable. It is good on your pocket. It will save you money, being water efficient. So I think we've highlighted the need for us to ensure that we drive a sustainability agenda across the board. And business, we are here to partner with you to ensure that that is done. Dr. Vel, I think the issue of scalability is an important one, and you need to be deliberate as WRC. Working with other partners. We know we have our mandate starts from A, ends at D, but we have a role to play to inform how these projects should be scaled. And I had a very brief conversation with the DM about one of the most limiting, or one of the greatest hurdle, I think Advocate Kuzayo also alluded to, our procurement landscape in South Africa. The fact that there is very limited appetite within government. Yes, there are limitations, and sometimes it's actually even the interpretation of the MFMA and the PMFMA. It's not that they are there, but people are so scared to make mistakes that they don't even want to explore some of this solution. So I think as we talk about scalability, we need to think about outside the box. We need to be more creative. Yes, private sector invest in it, impact investment, Max and the team, let's all come together. But ultimately, government offers services to the majority of South Africans, or to all South Africans. So we get services in the urban areas. We have running water. And yet when we have to invest in decentralized sanitation solution, it feels like it's not really a solution to our people. But they deserve as much support as we do. So let's talk about those budgets. To our fellow business community that is here, if there's anything that you think we should be doing to package our solution better, to make it more attractive to your boards, because I think one of the gentlemen alluded to the fact that there is so much structure in how this CSI is dispersed. And we need to educate ourselves and understand what that process looks like. How do we position ourselves to ensure that we benefit from there? But surely, business, we need to move away from that 0.05% of investment in such a very important sector. So I think I would like to maybe call for cooperation. Cooperation, as we said, our doors are open. Alone, as the African adage says, we can go fast. But together with all of us seated around the room and those that we are yet to invite into the room, together we can go far. So it really is a call to action for all of us. I think ultimately we would want to commit as a WRC, working with other partners, to ensuring that we do our bit towards contributing to a dignified sanitation solution for all South African, rich and poor. And with that, I would like to thank all of you who took out of your morning to spend this day with us. We guarantee you that it's not going to be the last one. We're going to meet again. And I would also like to appreciate all the speakers. Dr. Tepang, thank you very much for your insights, for your contribution today, but for your continued collaboration as a representative of the department. Mr. Nhlanhla from Umgeni, Uthukela Umgeni, which one comes first, Chair? Yeah. The notes are swapped, but yeah, that's not a problem. And then Ms. Hauchelon Chabeleng. Max, good to see you again. There is Dr. Cornelius Reiters that I'd like to appreciate in absentia if he is not here. We would also like to appreciate Mr. Harry Brink, Mr. Brian Lewis, Mr. Lunga Majija, and Mr. Rorim Ped. I don't know if those are here, but I think that brings us to a very lengthy, Madam Moderator, vote of thanks. But really, I'm very excited, DM and team, about what this movement means. And it's the beginning. And from here, we can only fly even higher. So see you and the team. Thank you very much. Convey my gratitude to all of the team members. DM, thank you very much for always supporting the work that we do. Advocate Kuzwayo, again, we appreciate you gracing our event and for your continued support. Yeah, I think I'm done. Did I forget anyone? I don't want to get into trouble, CE. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh, parking. Okay. So with that, thank you so much. I can't say much. I'm a child in the room, so I need to just quickly wrap up. Just as we go our separate ways, kindly note that there will be a light lunch that is served to allow you to mingle with purpose and to be energized to think about those budgets. Yes. And then, so while that is happening also, there is an experience that has been prepared for us to kind of get an understanding and get an insight and get into the innovation and the technology, because maybe sometimes you're just like, I don't know what they're talking about, it's too much. So in the next room, there is a VR experience for you to go through some of these innovations and see them. And then we've got the light lunch. Let's talk, let's start with the budgets, let's have those conversations. And once again, thank you so much for the honor and the privilege to have been in front of you and the respect and the engagement. My name is Ukanya Wagasosibo, umakemo mshingilo kaThabethu Mntwana okaNqobeni. Thank you. Oh, yes. Just a quick one, if you, for parking tickets, there is Utobile by the door. You can please exchange your parking tickets for the validated one. Yes, please. Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you for having me. Can we please have you on stage for a photo? Yes, please. Thank you so much. If you can please just join us for thing. Sawona baba.
Yes.
Ninjani?
No, sir.
Ngiyaphila ukhanya.
Thank you.
Ngiyabonga. Can we please get a picture? I'll find it for you, Ma. May we please have Dr. Jen? Oh, there she is. Please do make sure that you get your parking ticket, the validated one. Please exchange it. Can I get you on stage? Can I get you on stage for your photos?
I was today hectic.
Traffic.
Can we advocate?
Yes, can you please? Dr. Naidu? Huh? No, no problem. If you, the picture. Is there anyone else that we need? Is there anyone else that we need for the picture?
Should I join the picture?
No, I'm asking, is there anyone else that we need to have in the picture? I'm asking. I don't know. This.
I'm not sure.